everyone, thanks everyone for tuning into Sin's Workshop. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. So today we are going to be reviewing Project Hail Mary. I read this book for my local Barnes & Noble sci-fi fantasy book club, of which I'm the host. This book was never on my TBR. Never on my TBR. It didn't seem like it was going to be my type of book. And this is what I have to say. I'm an idiot. I love this book. This book was great. I was unexpectedly delighted by this book. I loved the story in general. I think it was really just masterfully well done. I'm trying to organize my thoughts. And I wrote down my notes too. I'm like literally looking at them right here. But I just don't know where to start, because it was just so well done. So I guess we'll start first with the science aspect of the book. A lot of people in the book club, and I also have to agree, and I think that's part of why I didn't mind you, I grew up learning about science. My mom went to MIT. I grew up at MIT. So her major was Earth, Atmospheric, and Planetary Sciences. So I grew up learning about this type of science. So I have a little bit more knowledge on theoretical physics and astrophysics than maybe your normal bookworm, except I'm not normal, right? I love space. I love studying that stuff. That's something I like to deep dive into at night when I can't sleep. I will just doom scroll through all of that stuff because it fascinates me. It really, really does fascinate me. I love celestial science. So for me, the science aspect of the book was, I could understand it. I could follow along with it. But a lot of the people in the book club, and I have to agree, it's really science heavy. It's really science heavy. But here's what I think Andy Weir does really well, is he explains it to you. I mean, you have to remember the character, Grace, he is a teacher. He teaches high school students, right? He is a teacher because he chooses to be a teacher. He likes being the cool teacher. So because of that, it is accessible. Andy Weir made the science accessible to the everyday audience. It's still very science heavy, and there were parts where I'm just I had to look up certain aspects of the science. I'm like, well, that is a type of science that I am unfamiliar with, right? Time dilation, yeah, I know all about that stuff. But length dilation, there were other aspects of science that I'm just wow, I have no idea what this is. So I would, do a little research because I quite like science. And yet I didn't think to put this book on my TBR. So Andy Weir writes in a way that is accessible to everyone. It's just fascinating. And I think what works to make it accessible is the characterization. I think Grace is such a well done character. He's funny. He kind of hates himself, but he's so funny about it. I mean, usually when characters, kind of hate themselves and they bog down on themselves, it usually takes me out of the novel, and I'm just oh my God, can we stop with the self-hating? It's a normal aspect of life. We all go through it. It is realistic, but too much of it can tend to bog down the story, right? And it makes the character tend to come off as more whiny than sympathetic, right? In my opinion. Andy Weir does it in such a way, it's humorous. I went into this book thinking, oh goodness gracious, it's going to be dry. And I feel like this is going to be a dry book. It was not dry at all. I was so pleasantly surprised by just the tone and the way it was accessible and the humanization of it as well. And I think that's what Weir does so well, is he makes Grace so human. He is self-deprecating. He does call himself a coward. He has amnesia for 75% of the book. His memory comes back to him in certain scenarios, and it works. It really, really works. Usually when you have flashback scenes, those can sometimes take a reader out of it, but even everyone in my book club who just I hate when they have dual timelines, and it was a general consensus, but it was done so well that I liked it. And I agree. I am someone who doesn't mind non-linear timelines. I don't mind flashbacks. as long as they serve a purpose. You know, as long as they serve a purpose. And in this case, they not only served a purpose, but they were also very humanizing. You know, and it also, again, it made you more empathetic towards Grace. It made him more likable. It made you understand his situation more because you're also getting to know his backstory as it comes to him. Because he has no idea who he is as he's waking up. He's like, where am I? He's like, okay, I'm a scientist. All right. I know this and I know this. It's slowly coming back to him. So as it's slowly coming back to him, it's slowly, coming back to the reader. He has this tone. He's funny. And I just think because of all that, again, one aspect of the books makes the other aspect of the book more accessible. So humanizing Grace, learning about Grace and his background, thus made the science aspect of the book, the really high level intelligence science, it made it way more accessible to the reader, And also Rocky. Can we just talk about Rocky and the side characters for a moment? I mean, Rocky was great. I absolutely loved Rocky so much. I can't wait to see the movie now. I'm actually excited. I was like, I wasn't really caring, but now this book, I want to read Artemis now. I don't really want to read The Martian because I've seen The Martian, but I do want to read Artemis now. She's a criminal, she's on the moon. Now that I know Andy Weir's style of writing is humor and not dry, which is what my fear was going into this, now I'm excited to read more of him, and now I want to read more of him. Now I want to go pick up Artemis from the store and physically read it because I audiobooked. First of all, this book had a spectacular audiobook. If you are going to get this book, I highly recommend the audiobook just because of the different inflections, especially when he learns to talk to Rocky, because Rocky is an alien and they kind of communicate via wavelength and sound. So that whole process and the way Rocky sounds, it's just great. It's just, the production value for this audiobook was absolutely brilliant. And I think that's another reason why I liked it so much. Because the tone, and mind you, I listened to the audiobook at like ×3 speed because I'm psychotic. The tone, the humor, Rocky, the different tone and inflections going into the production of the book, for me, I think made it a little bit more accessible, and that's why it didn't feel dry at all. I just loved it. I loved every aspect of this book. I thought the pacing was so excellently well done. I love the way it goes back and forth between past and present and how we're slowly discovering Grace and who he is. At the same time, he is remembering who he is. I love the humor. I love the science aspect, even the bits of science that I didn't quite understand. Again, I'm a publishing major. I'm a writing and publishing major. I went way the opposite direction of my mother. So my knowledge stops at reading Scientific American magazines, which I haven't done in years, but science fascinates me. It really does. It was accessible, it was accessible. It was fun. It made me laugh. And I just, it was brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Was this much of a review? I don't think so. I'm sorry. I apologize. It was such a good book. I loved the characterization. I loved Rocky. I loved the tone, the pacing, just everything about it. I have absolutely no complaints. I'm so happy that I was forced to read this book because this book was not on my TBR at all. And it was a general consensus. A lot of people in the book club were like, this isn't my normal genre. We like fantasy, but I love this book. 5 stars. And it was great because of that. It's accessible and it's funny and it's humanizing and it makes you laugh. It makes you cry. I'm not much of a crier, but there are points I was just like freaking out, especially for Rocky. I was just like, oh my God. The ending's very bittersweet. I will warn you about that. But, it made me feel really happy, good things, as if you can't tell. It was honestly a brilliant, brilliant novel. Highly recommend it to everyone. So, that note, thank you for tuning in. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your book loving friends. I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, happy reading.